Is arm wrestling truly viable as a spectator sport? Judging by the recent explosion in popularity and ever-growing exposure on various social media, one would assume it certainly can be. With great arm wrestling matches now available in a host of never-before-seen ways, it seems we are moving towards the golden age of viewability for the sport. But in order to take pride in one's present situation, it is imperative we look not only forwards, but try to also learn from what came before. I am the Arm Historian, and today I'll be your tour guide as we explore what happens when a major TV network puts a lot of faith and resources in producing the world's first arm wrestling reality show, and how it eventually spawned one of the most popular leagues in history. By the early 2010s, the heyday of reality-themed TV series was nearing its end, and the US-based basic cable television channel, AMC, was looking to make a final mark on the genre. With most of its former ventures into the reality TV foray falling flat on their face, apart from the critically acclaimed Comic Book Men, AMC turned to a production think tank for their next big hit, a body of experts within the field of television production. Eventually, one of the ideas that was greenlit was a reality TV show about competitive arm wrestling. The show was first commissioned by producer Matt Renner, who brought along with him two additional producers that he worked with on his first big success, the infamous Deadliest Catch, a reality TV show following the trials and tribulations of several Alaskan crab fishermen. This new show originally adopted the working title of King of Arms, although it eventually became known as Game of Arms, presumably a play on words inspired by the then globally popular fantasy show Game of Thrones. After pre-production started, a major player in this story entered the scene. Steve Kaplan found success in his career in the 90s as the owner of a large international marketing firm, and by the time the new millennium rolled around, he managed to sell his company while retaining a CEO position. After this, Steve served in an advisory role on several projects by working on the executive committee for a large integrated marketing communications agency. He also spent his time giving talks and advice to aspiring entrepreneurs. It was during one of these tours where he traveled to Afghanistan to give extensive talks to soldiers who wanted to start businesses when their service was over. To Kaplan's surprise, he noticed that a large number of servicemen were spending their free time arm wrestling each other, probably in a bid to get rid of pent-up frustration from what is undoubtedly a brutal job. While touring US military bases in Afghanistan, he found himself captivated with the sport, and as luck might have it, he was already working as a consultant for, you guessed it, Game of Arms. After returning to the US, Kaplan would become one of the major driving forces behind seeing the show's potential come to full fruition. The producers wanted to create a show that would feature several teams of arm wrestlers competing against each other for the grand title, with each episode featuring several matches in different weight classes. Early on in the process, it became clear that another main focus would be the arm wrestlers themselves. The goal was to provide a unique insight into the personal life of each of them and the training necessary to get them to the level they are. With the production team assembled, the backing of AMC secured, and a theme agreed upon, the time came to find the perfect cast of arm wrestlers. One of the main heavyweight contenders of the time, especially on the left arm, Travis Bagent, quickly became their prime target. By this time, Travis had a proven track record, not only as an accomplished arm wrestler, but also off the table. His bravado and loud personality had served him well on several television appearances, as well as one of the main focuses of the 2009 documentary, Pulling John. The production team of Game of Arms approached Travis, who seemed willing to accept what must have been a big opportunity. Travis would not only star in the show, but played a pivotal part in drafting the other arm wrestlers to the cast, bringing on legendary names in the sport, amongst others, Andrew Cobra Rhodes and Hollywood's Don Underwood. Eventually, the full cast is decided on, and teams are formed, 5 in total. The Eerie Wrecking Crew, featuring the aforementioned Travis Bagent and powerhouse Dave Chaffee, who was by then making waves on the international circuit. The New York City Arm Control, with future wall notables Mike Salierius and Mike Aiello. The Sacramento Armbenders consists among others of legends veteran puller Alan Fisher and Kenny Hughes, who would end up being one of the protagonists and main focuses of the show. The Baton Rouge Roughnecks, containing a bunch of good old boys who seem relatively new to the sport, as well as veteran Craig Tullier. The Kansas City Rolling Thunder, captained by multiple world champion Andrew Cobra Rhodes, the exuberant Hollywood Don Underwood, and future wall attendee Nick Zima. With the teams fully formed, the crew got to work on filming the show and deciding how to frame it exactly. As is the case with a lot of other reality TV shows, a heavy focus is put upon giving the viewer an insight into the personal life of the participants. As one can imagine, this puts a heavy emphasis on some more dramatic aspects. A point was clearly made on how arm wrestling, still being a niche sport, is nearly impossible to do on a professional, full-time level, while trying at the same time to support oneself and a possible family. The characters involved with the sport were ultimately portrayed as flawed, but deeply human and sympathetic. As far as the matches themselves go, they are always a spectacle. I mean this in a mostly positive way. Matchups seldomly take weight classes into account, but instead appear made with experience and strength in mind. Apart from some glaring mismatches, I do think an actual attempt was made to make exciting, somewhat even matches in most cases. Refs are clearly instructed to be lenient and fast-paced with setups, and generally enforce rules on a case-by-case basis. When re-watching Game of Arms, I found myself laughing at a lot of the flagrantly flying elbows. The cinematography and actual framing of the pullers during the action, though, was definitely top tier, and made a large portion of the matches a true joy to watch. From this point on, I'll be going into a little more depth on the show's actual story progression, and I will be sharing some highlights. If you want to avoid most spoilers about the content of the show itself, skip to the next chapter. The actual tournament got underway, and as per part of the show's premise, each individual round won garnered the athlete $250, while a team win earned the team an additional $1,000 as a whole. Pretty early on in the show, it became clear that one team stood head and shoulders above the others, especially in the heavyweight division. Team Erie had Dave Chaffee and Travis Bagent, both of whom by then had the most success in this division outside of the show and on the international stage. Travis was widely regarded as having been one of the top world contenders on the left, and Dave Chaffee came fresh from the airport back from his impressive supermatch win versus Denis Seplenkov in Poland. Therefore, the initial conclusion of the tournament as a whole was all but foregone. At a certain point, in a bid to make matchups more even, the producers forced Dave to take a handicap by only letting him pull lefty. It made no difference. Team Erie stood head and shoulders above the rest of the field, and apart from a few hiccups, should have won the tournament with relative ease. In a twist half expected of reality TV shows, Team Kansas City snagged the overall season win though, going undefeated. Some of the characters of the pullers showed that the casting of the show was certainly one of its boons. One of the pullers truly in his element was clearly Andrew Cobra Rhodes, planting one-liners throughout and generally upping the theatrics.
I am ready to arm wrestle now. Can I arm wrestle now?
Cobra and we're two different people.
You can tell Cobra was enjoying it and leaning into the reality TV aspect. His rivalry with certified madman and middleweight legend Alan Fisher was a particular highlight for me. With cameras pointed directly at them and undoubtedly somewhat spurred on by the crew, things would oftentimes get heated off the table, with fights for or not breaking out. While not the most profound thing in the show, it is somewhat fun to see familiar faces getting riled up and playing it up for the camera. After the conclusion of the tournament, it was decided to produce one penultimate episode. In the aptly named Final Showdown, the competition would turn individual, with the best of each weight class to be decided. Everyone gathered in a big hall and settled in for an arm wrestling extravaganza. Several great matches ensued and finally culminated in a matchup of epic proportions. Dave Chaffee and Travis Bagent pulled each other, alternating every round between left and right hands. First to win 2 in a row would be crowned the overall winner. It became apparent quickly that Travis Bagent was far more dominant on the left hand, and Dave Chaffee a lot stronger on the right, so they started pulling, hoping the other's dominant hand and arm would eventually tire out. However, try as they might, that time never came. After a record-breaking 36+ rounds on the table, the crowd started to chant, "Two champions." After filming and post-production wrapped up, the series premiered on AMC on February the 25th, 2014 to an approximate 1 million viewers, which to this day holds the record of most popular reality series premiere on AMC. Initial reviews were mostly laudatory and praised the show's grittiness and the fact that it offered a unique insight into the life of a niche sport athlete. Due to the show's relative success, especially for AMC standards, the network decided to immediately renew its contract and commissioned a second season. Following what seemed to be the same format, Season 2 filming commenced with a lot of the same cast members, in some cases supplemented with some new arrivals, one of them being the infamous Devon Larratt, who even makes a brief cameo at the end of Season 1. Halfway through shooting Season 2, disaster struck for the fledgling arm wrestling show, when AMC decided to refocus their scheduling and show format. The entire reality TV show genre got scrapped from AMC, as it wanted to produce almost exclusively fictionalized drama shows. Despite what must have been a massive setback, it seemed one member of the crew just couldn't let go of arm wrestling. Steve Kaplan, who remained in touch with a large number of the arm wrestlers involved with Game of Arms, decided to start his own arm wrestling league. Only a little while later, the World Arm Wrestling League, or WAL, was born, and the influence of Game of Arms shone through in a big way. Some of the Game of Arms competitors would even become heavily involved in the WAL tournament scene. Bart Wood, a member of the Erie team, went on to join Kaplan after Game of Arms in his quest to set up WAL, and eventually became a notorious head ref with the league. In the end, little remains online of Game of Arms. Only through some serious digital archaeological surveying can we find some remnants of this great, but certainly not perfect venture. The show can arguably be faulted for at times being overly dramatic and for occasionally putting the integrity of arm wrestling as a legitimate sport on the back burner, in some cases even coming across as pretty exploitative, especially in hindsight. Despite all this, I know for a fact Game of Arms introduced arm wrestling to a lot of the current mainstays and up-and-comers in the sport, and had a serious impact on the culture and growth of the sport we all love. In this way, I believe it was mostly a force for good within our community. In short, if you want to see a show where Bart Wood is dragging Travis Bagent and Dave Chaffee through the snow while they straddle one tiny sled, Game of Arms is perfect for you. I want to extend my gratitude to Paul Lynn and Neil Pickup, who were kind enough to set me on the right track in my research. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of them in the future, consider letting me know by liking, subscribing and commenting. Arm Historian, out.